Can good design shape a better world? At Monocle's Quality of Life conference in Barcelona this September, we'll be putting that question to the people who already are. Join leading designers, architects, and creative leaders as we explore how design intersects with culture, business, and everyday life. Plus, great food, excellent company, and plenty of Catalan charm. Find out more and book your seat at monocle.com/conference.
This is Monocle on Design, a show where we discuss everything from architecture and craft to furniture and graphic design. I'm Nick Manise. On today's program, we meet illustrator and writer Rob Lowe, also known as Supermundane. We also talk about the link between architecture and place, plus another instalment of our summer series. All that coming up on Monocle on Design. Hello and welcome to today's program. I'm joined in the studio by Monocle's Grace Charlton. Hi, Grace Charlton.
Hi, Nick Manise. Welcome back. You've been on holiday.
I make an active effort to stay out of the sun, and I think the tan is. This is my process. So
is the alcohol?
It's definitely the alcohol. This is all the life's been drained out of me. No, it's no sunscreen. Find a spot in the shade. Stay in the shade. And then get out for like maybe a 15-minute swim, then straight back into the shade and just rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. You develop what I like to call, or what is called, a sun callus, which is just a very gentle kind of like, it's a thing.
Callus.
You can look it up. A sun callus, yeah, it's a really, really gentle thing. You build up the strength to it, and then all of a sudden you're at a process where you don't have to put on sunscreen. To be clear, not advocating for get proper medical advice from other people, but this is my process and this is what works for me.
I think you have strong Italian genes that allow for this. I don't think my pale skin could handle it.
Well, this is it. I mean, clearly, feel Mediterranean. I was on the Mediterranean. I mean, I spent most of my time at the beach. Cheeky little 4-day holiday, 3 full days at the beach. And it was funny every morning, it'd be like, okay, we're going to go for a quick swim and then we'll go out and get some culture, eat at a nice restaurant. They've got some amazing galleries there as well. Gladly talk about that too. But ended up spending literally my 9 to 5 at the beach every day, and it was just incredible. But I think what I observed kind of heading west out of Palma, just along that rocky, limestoney kind of coastline, there are so many different beaches and they all have such different characters. There are the ones that seem to be built up around huge resorts, and whilst the water still looks appealing, it's probably not somewhere I want to spend time. Where I was kind of drawn to with the kind of smaller bays that seemed to have architecture that was a little bit more sensitive to the landscape.
Yeah, I think Mallorca is a really interesting island in terms of how many contrasts it contains. They've got the Magaluf resort side, and then they've got the really wild, craggy landscape that's barely touched. It's super interesting as an island.
And I think it's on that craggy landscape that I guess I want to focus on a little bit more. So I was stopping quite short of Magaluf, even though
you're in Magaluf.
I appreciate I do have a little bit of that Magaluf energy. But no, I was stopping just short of it at a bay called Iates, get the number 4 bus out there from Palma. But what really appealed to me about it was this kind of perfect balance between this kind of rocky, wild landscape, but then also having just a few kind of buildings scattered along the beach. The actual apartments in that area are quite far set back. They feel appropriately coastal. They feel light on the landscape. You've kind of got your beautiful striped awnings adorning the balconies. But then on the actual beachfront itself, they have these little structures dotted along the coast called chiringuitos. You can get a coffee, water, a little sandwich, vermouth, whatever you're looking for that's going to satiate you while you're at the beach. But I think the most successful ones and the most beautiful ones, they have the lightest, simplest touch on the landscape. And strangely, by having them there as a presence, I guess giving the landscape a focal point, and maybe these boxy kind of structures, a semi-ornate railing, a few simple chairs and tables on top, almost plonked in the middle of a really, really dramatic landscape. It kind of enhanced the quality of the landscape and make the landscape look more dramatic. And maybe it's this contrast between having this kind of really simple boxy architecture and then a dramatic rolling landscape where cliffs are falling into the ocean, people are diving off them. You've got aquamarine, parts of seaweed where the water goes really dark. You kind of have all these contrasts, and it's sort of a moment where the lightest, simplest architecture can enhance a landscape. There are occasions where obviously this is executed perfectly. Falling Water by Frank Lloyd Wright, and obviously that's a remarkable work of architecture, but it elevates this, what is a really stock standard stream in Pennsylvania that you kind of wouldn't look at twice, all of a sudden into like a remarkable landscape. And I think in a way, in Palmer, this is what these little structures do. It's
such a fine art. I mean, my instinct is always to avoid it as much as possible. I've seen so many coastlines just be built up on, it's not only in Mallorca. I was in Albania last summer, and there were just these condos that are being built everywhere. Not everybody is Frank Lloyd Wright in terms of their architecture and the lightness of touch they can bring to a landscape. It's always like a debate when you're in these really Mediterranean resort towns, who's done it correctly. Will it stay untouched for how much longer?
I think this is the challenge, because you want to spend time on the coast. And I think there was something to that as well. Lying on the rocks in the shade, it's that whole earthing principle, and I felt so recharged and so much calmer. So you want to provide people access to that, but how do you do it in a way that is gentle and appropriate and maybe enhances that experience?
Beautiful. I love the idea of you just lying on a towel contemplating these things on your holiday.
And reading a book that you recommended. There's this full Monocle on Design full circle moment.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. I feel like I often have the challenge, and this is part of our jobs. I was in Istanbul recently at a spa, and all I could do was think about how excellent the column was going to be off the back of this spa treatment. There are challenges with this job that...
You're the Carrie Bradshaw of the design world. And just like that, we're going to throw to Fernando Augusto Pacheco.
It's summertime. It's the summer series. Monocle Design's Summer Essentials. Those are the dulcet tones of Monocle's Fernando Augusto Pacheco, setting us up for the summer series. It's, to be honest, Grace Charlton, one of my favourite times of the year. This is where we get people in the studio talking about the things that they love and care about.
I love summer, specifically Euro summer. So in terms of my design essentials and what I'm thinking of when I think of summer, I grew up in Switzerland, very Mittel Europa, on the banks of Lake Geneva. So I'm going to start there with my design essentials. Picture this. It's a balmy day. You're on Lake Lugano, the sort of Italian part of Switzerland. And there's a chair from the 1930s that originates from a lido called the Lido di Locarno. Wow.
Is this a Swiss Riviera? Can we call it that?
Yeah, why not? It is now. Yeah.
Cool.
Visit Switzerland. Contact us for some...
This is how we're going to change perceptions. This is where Switzerland's going to become Euro summer. So, chair from the Lido. Why this chair, though?
It's very Bauhaus. It's got tubular steel canvas that can be stretched on top of it.
Picturing light also reflecting off the steel. It's amplifying that summer atmosphere.
Yeah, but the best part is the way that the canvas is attached to the frame. You can do it different ways so that you're sitting upright, but you're also laying down. You can recline in it. And that's the design.
Just
of the
using
chair.
the canvas?
Yeah.
So there's not like a lever or something. You just readjust the seat and you're ready to go.
It's genius. I mean, it does sound a little bit like a faff, but it was designed by Battista Giudici and his brother Gino in 1936, and you can still spot it around Switzerland.
Brilliant, love it. So we're in the chair. I'm personally going for the reclined option. I'm quite strong arms from Pilates. I'm happy to hold a book up above my face.
Exactly, and then to shade your eyes from the glaring sun.
Naturally.
So I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to head south, specifically to the south of France, but also I'm going to go to Greece and Montenegro, where the beaches are a little bit rockier, which I love because I think it looks better to have a nice grey rock cutting across the aquamarine blue Mediterranean Sea. But they really hurt my feet. I have very sensitive soles.
So quickly, and you are a sensitive soul, which I think is just absolutely beautiful double up there. But so it's no sand, and it's just rocks purely for aesthetics. Is there also a practicality side to that as well?
I know a lot of people don't like sand. I actually don't mind it too much.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I grew up with. I'm quite happy with it.
But for the aesthetics, I will say rocks look better.
So we're walking along a rocky beach.
Ow, it hurts so much. This is when a beautiful piece of design is going to come in. Drawstring waterproof reef shoes. which I think look really chic.
See, but this is the thing. This brings me back to like my childhood and chucking these reef walkers on, what we would call them, and we go crabbing, definitely walking across actual reef, which we should not have been doing. Yeah, probably contributing to environmental degradation. But I have them so closely associated with being like 12, these kind of awkward phases where, you know, your mum's making you put on these shoes, but you really don't want to be wearing them.
And a rashie.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, and a rashie. They're, I don't know, I guess like a neoprene shirt almost that you've got that covers, you know, from neck to waist all the way down your arms. Absolutely essential item in any Australian summer wardrobe.
The ones I have in mind are very grown up, and actually they're very The Row, you know, the ultra minimalist label by Ashley and Mary Kay Olsen, and they retail a very similar looking mesh pair that are just black and simple, but they probably set you back about £1,000.
Okay, but paint the picture of the ones you're thinking
So
of.
the cheaper version, inspired by those, would just be black simple mesh, and then you can
So it's kind of like a rubberized sole.
Oh yeah,
and
yeah.
then
So
like
that you're actually protected.
fully
so you're
enclosed.
chic and protected, although you have to be careful with the tan lines, I will say that. And then you can get in and out of the water without looking like, oh, you're in pain, which is what I do.
But you do look a little bit ridiculous. Just
No, you look really chic. Oh my gosh. Okay, never mind. Next. We go to Italy, where they've mastered the art of a striped awning or a striped umbrella. I've spent a lot of time in Liguria, but also earlier this summer I was in Calabria, and like as far as you could see down the shore, it was just beautiful striped umbrellas in all colours. You know, there's orange, there's green, there's blue, there's just red. It's stunning.
How did stripes become associated with summer in your mind? Like, where do you find that link? Is it from spending time kind of in the Med or you know, on the lakes of Switzerland?
Yeah, you're right. I think there's something quite sunny about stripes. There is a lot of it in Switzerland, and also in the south of France. I wonder if there's like a design reason behind the stripes. Is it to make something that's a bit boring a bit more exciting?
Yeah, and I think maybe to break up rhythms and I guess visually kind of soften things, which, you know, imagine if you're instead looking at a block of colour, that might be a little bit overwhelming, but I guess by having the stripe, it kind of breaks things up a little bit. And I wonder, typically you're talking alternating with white stripes. There's probably also something to be said about, I guess, heat reduction. I don't know. I'm trying to get in the head of the designer here.
I wonder if it's Italians trying to like out peacock each other and have the best looking Lido, you know?
Yeah,
they understand the value of a vibe.
And healthy competition is also good for pushing design conversations forward.
Exactly. Finally, my last stop on this whirlwind tour of Europe is Bodrum.
Can I quickly jump in? How are we getting around on this whirlwind tour? Are we flying? Are we talking PJs? Are we talking helicopters? Are we? Are you in the back of a combi van? Like, how are you moving around? I guess this is what I want.
This is an excellent question. I think if I'm going from Switzerland to Italy or the south of France, it would have to be a train. You know, and I like the fact that, you know, democratic holidays sort of started in the 1950s in France when they introduced annual leave, and everyone would go on their...
So modern, so progressive.
I know, it's so good. And like, so it's like a democratic right to go to the beach in France almost. So they've got amazing links all the way down to the south of France.
Because that's the thing, it's a French rail network, as far as I understand, really strong connections to the coast, but less so like within the country itself.
Yeah, but actually when you're down on the coast, they've got an amazing like Côte d'Azur train that takes you from Marseille all the way to like Monaco.
Phenomenal. So we can play, we can stop off at various different resorts along the way, different small towns and communities.
Is it on time? No, but are you in a rush? Also no.
It's summer. Relax.
Exactly.
Chill out.
Come
This is me
on.
as a train guard. I'll grow up.
And then if I'm going from France to Italy, maybe I would hop on a boat. It's not a ferry. It's, you know...
Who's captaining it? Who's steering it? What's the crew?
Maybe just like a small boat, one crew, perhaps a Russian captain called Ivan or something like that. And I'm picturing a teak deck.
Nice.
Dock somewhere in Liguria. And then to go from Italy to Bodrum, a private jet, I wouldn't be against it.
You're not going to say no. You're not going to turn that down.
I'm not going to turn it down if it's already going. Like, obviously, I wouldn't charter it because it's bad for the environment. But if it's going, actually, I think I would alleviate the carbon footprint of a private jet if it's already on its way to
so
Bodrum.
selfless. So you're on this private jet. We're at your final stop, Bodrum. You've reduced carbon footprint. You're making a difference. You're supporting small Swiss makers. You're providing some sort of employment to ship captains, which I assume are a dying industry. I mean, we're doing the Lord's work this summer with Grace Charlton. How are we rounding it up?
We're going to an ultra luxe, laid back, like bohemian, but it's really expensive retreat.
Naturally.
In a few weeks, I'm going to Bodrum again, and it will be to stay at the Scorpios resort, which is very much like teak, beige canvas, maybe a bit of crochet, but not tacky crochet, like beautiful crochet. And like travertine marble floors.
And this is newly open because Scorpios is started in Greece.
Exactly. And it was in Greece, it was a real like beach club party. And now they've got a sort of yoga retreat for after the club.
Okay. So are we clubbing at night and then recouping in the morning, or is this more about yoga and more about
just recouping? I think it's like green juice central.
Has this kind of charted your own personal life? We've gone from the clubs and now we're in a moment where it's all about taking care of ourselves, a little bit of a yoga moment,
You're
just
right.
like really looking inward. It's less about what's going outside and more on what's going inside.
Wow, you know me too well. So yeah, that's my Eurosummer tour.
This is the one thing I find funny about Euro Summer is it happens in August, which means when you come back it's September, October, November, and then everyone knows no one does any work in December. You've got 3 months to go until you switch off for Christmas.
Eurosummer is not August. If you're me, I think it starts June and it ends in October.
It's the summer series. Monocle Design's Summer Essentials. Design Essentials.
This show's producer, Maylee Evans, is now joining us. Hi, Maylee Evans.
Hello.
Now, you've spoken to the artist, illustrator and writer Rob Lowe. Grace Charlton was a little bit disappointed that it wasn't the actor Rob Lowe. Is that a fair characterisation?
Exactly. Yeah, I was like, oh, you spoke to Rob Lowe. Wow.
Well, this is exactly why this illustrator had to come up with the moniker Supermundane for this exact reason. I came to know Rob's work through his book Lost Ordinary Magic. It's a beautiful sort of pocket-sized book that features lots of simple subjects paired with these wonderful pictogram-esque minimal sort of designs. It's a fun little title to dip into here and there, read a bit about how magnets work. And Rob's style is really geometric shapes, lines, colours, very bold, bright, striking patterns there. But he's had many a varied chapter in his lifetime, so a very sort of interesting career, which is what I spoke to him about.
And I think it's this idea of like the ordinary and finding the ordinary wonderful that I really like as well. Marvelling at the design of a paperclip, or is it YKK zippers? Those zippers that are kind of everyday things. I picked up an amazing book recently at the Pentagram archive sale. This famous graphic design agency recently shifted offices, sold off a heap of stuff, and it was 101 things kind of invented, everyday objects invented in the 20th century. And it was funny, flicking through it, it still felt completely relevant today. Again, paperclips are the one that keeps coming to my mind right now, but there are all these kind of things that you look past and don't think anything of. But if you kind of start to look for them in your everyday life, it's funny how it can be like a little bit of a joy and a little bit of a wonder and a simple celebration of human ingenuity, which is what it feels like Rob Lowe is doing here.
Precisely that. But he started off with telling me how he got that name, Supermundane, which means transcending the earthly things.
My first job out of college, got a job in a kettle factory in the Midlands, where I'm from, and I just read the dictionary, and in that dictionary was supermundane. It's not in many dictionaries anymore, and I love the idea that it was the opposite of what it sounded like. I've always been interested in very simple, normal, ordinary things, and doing something more than the sum of the parts with these kind of things. And I thought, yeah, that's a good name to hide behind. And to begin with, I just called my beaten-up beige Cavalier, this old Vauxhall Cavalier. That was the Supermundane.
Take me back to your early days and working in the kettle factory. I mean, as a young designer, what is that like as an environment to hone your skills, to be creating packaging, as I believe you were back in the day? Were you still working analogue in those days? Was that the birth of maybe some digital tools coming in?
It was a crossover period. To begin with, I was still working on drawing boards and doing huge artworks for packaging, for kettles and toasters too. And slowly that drifted over to the computer. I was kind of hidden away behind the product designers. I was given my own little office, and then I spent any other time doing my own stuff because nobody knew what I was up to, hidden away behind two locked doors. But I knew that isn't what I wanted to be doing, and I ended up applying for a job with Mathmos, the people who invented the lava lamp. The lava lamp was the most 90s thing I could have probably been working on in terms of, I was doing the same thing, still packaging, but a lot more fun and a lot more engaging, really.
At that point, was it very commercial, the work? How much play did you have in that environment? Was it very much stick to this brief. How were you able to bring some of that sense of colour, of geometric? Was that even your language at that point?
Not really. I was scribbling away in sketchbooks at that point in my own world. But Mathmos, when we were there, a friend came and joined me as well, who I went to college with, and we had a lot of fun. We were given complete free rein to a certain degree. I feel like we might be slightly responsible for the chatty packaging, because we did that on the lamps before anybody else was doing it, because we asked the printers kind of, can we print on the flaps? Can we print? Because all these things were blank. And I went, yeah, it doesn't cost any more. So we thought, this is somewhere we can hide gags or extra things. So we just always put more in than we needed to. Can't believe some of the things we got away with. We had these Mathmos moments with, I was reading about Taoism, and on the side of the fibre space it said, do nothing and all will be done. It is easier to run a buffalo off a cliff than to beat it to death with a stick. And that was on like a bit of packaging. Yeah, it's not as happy-clappy as some of the packaging now, but we just got away with doing anything we wanted, really. I was there for like 5 years, and then everybody who wanted a lava lamp had one, and I got made redundant. So then that's when I went to work for Ministry of Sound, of all places. I've got quite a varied career, really.
No, but that's it, and that's part of the fun. So the 10 years then followed that, you were working with a lot of independent magazines, you were art directing for the likes of Good for Nothing, Anorak, Fire and Knives. So again, very varied in subject matter.
Yes. Yeah.
Tell me how your design language, I guess, developed there, and how that collaborative process perhaps influenced your work then.
At that point, I'd got a website called Supermundane, and I'd kind of been picked up by West Coast American skateboard scene, and so I was doing that in my spare time, and then and I was getting commissions, bits and bobs to do work. But then, Anorak magazine came along off the back of Sleaze Nation and Good for Nothing, which Sleaze Nation, I went to work there, and it lasted for 4 issues. But it was a place where I could, again, just do what I wanted, to experiment. And even though it was a kids' magazine, we took it very seriously and put a lot of effort in. And then Fire and Knives, I got complete free rein to do whatever I wanted. We met up once an issue just to go through the copy edits. Other than that, I got the copy, and in 2 or 3 weeks, I gave him back a finished magazine, which meant I could do whatever I wanted. So with Fire and Knives, I used it as a space to experiment with typography. And there's a lot of hand lettering in there, and there's a lot of me just doing whatever I wanted. But I'm not like an indulgent way, just a way that made it interesting for people. I'd have like about 18 stories to deal with. There was no imagery, and I would do each title page almost like a little book cover, and I would go through the easy ones, so the ones that I had an idea immediately, and then there'd always be a couple at the end where I'd be completely depleted of energy because I'd struggle with them, and then I'd just do some quite nice hand lettering for those. With Anorak and that, there wasn't anything like them around at that time, and Fire and Knives, it was one of the first of those single subject matter magazines that was just food writing, quarterly. So after that, I'd been working with magazines for like 10 years, independent ones. I made very little money because they don't pay very well, oddly. Since then, I've been doing my own work, which has been good, really. It was a good thing.
Talk me through that moment where you sort of went, okay, Supermundane full-time, pedal down to the metal, we're going to run and see what happens. How did you deal with that process? Because I suppose there might be a lot of listeners who are kind of in that process where they're figuring out, okay, do I turn to my practice full-time, or do I really go for it now after having worked alongside others for a while?
Unfortunately, I'm just somebody who reacts to things as they happen. And so I'd probably still at Mathmos if I hadn't been made redundant. I don't think so. I panicked, obviously, because it was the first time I didn't have some sort of regular income. And then you think, am I going to get any work in? But it also, first time, gave me time and space to completely devote myself to my own work, which when I was doing magazines, they're very labour intensive. And you have a kind of a recovery period. And by the time you're feeling like, I'm back into it, then the next one's coming along. To not have to do that gave me the space to develop a lot quicker than I would have if I hadn't have done that. Every step of my career is completely different to the world that we're in now. And I've just been quite lucky in terms of when that happened. In fact, it was just at the start of Instagram becoming big. So I was just there at the right time for that. So after a while, approach to do work by that. And I think there was this interest in the artists. So I was getting offered to do work, which I could do almost anything because they were interested in working with me specifically.
I wanted to talk a bit about frameworks because I've read that you're not so keen of this idea of having a definitive style, but the idea of approach is a lot more integral to the way you work.
I think when I say that I'm not as keen on style as approach. I think people are surprised because people think I've got a very specific style. It's treating things in quite an instinctive manner, trying to do things emotionally. So when I'm doing geometric work, I'm responding in an emotional manner to the things I make. They're often done on a computer, but I'm building them. I'm building them line by line, which I would do if I was drawing. It's the same thing, but on a computer I can move things around. Well, I allow that process to dictate where I go, really. I'm always looking out for happy accidents as well. If you're working in Illustrator, for example, you're often just throwing things off the main page, and then just something might happen that you go, oh, that's better than what I was doing. Or it's very easy just to keep repeating yourself, but it's hard to find ways of breaking your own dogma, really. I did the exhibition last year called Kin, and I've been experimenting with old French curves, these old stencils that I had to have at college, but we didn't use at all. And everything I've been doing is very straight lines, 90-degree lines, 45-degree lines, circles. And I thought, well, maybe I'll try and soften up, but still use stencils and templates. These birds appeared out of that, and now I'm working with them again with lettering and trying to put all these different things, because I'm looking back at what I've been doing, really. I mean, I'm my 4th decade now of doing this kind of stuff, even though it's all kinds of different stuff. So I'm going, well, I've got all these things I've done, and I'm kind of missing doing type and missing the editorial side, but I'm not sure I want to go back to doing a magazine. But I'm just thinking I can play around a bit more, so I've been doing these prints. I'm throwing everything into them. I've self-published poetry and Lost Ordinary Magic, which is the one that's on the table over there. I originally self-published that as well, and it got bought by Deputy Managing Director of Little Brown, and they asked if I wanted them to publish it as a hardback. I wasn't totally sure because it's like a small personal book, and I was a bit like, I'd never thought about it being out into the cruel wide world. It's one thing people buying things from me direct when they know a little bit about me, but when it's just out there, it's just a delicate little thing.
It's a wonderful piece of writing and of design. I mean, were you coming up with the writing first or with the designs first?
With that one, yeah, the writing came about first. I live on this artist muse street in Forest Hill in South London, and I was chatting to my neighbour on the street, and I was just talking about how things are so overcomplicated in the modern world. So many amazing things in small things that we should be amazed by, but we just take for granted. And I was going on about the fact that if you put salt or sugar into water, it disappears, but it's there. You can taste it, and that's kind of weird that we just take that's just normal. I mean, I know there's scientific reasons, but I'm not really interested in the scientific reasons. I like the idea that these kind of magic tricks happen. And that was the beginning, and I just started thinking, oh, there's all these small things that can be looked at from slightly different points of view. Maybe if we concentrate on them a bit more, everything could slow down a bit. And that's how it started, but then it kind of ended up turning into these little stories from my past a lot of the time. The drawings were very, very simple. They're not clever at all. They're just almost pictograms, and everything came about as a way of bringing a little bit of me, an extra bit, into the work.
Fair. And in terms of reducing concepts into those lines, into those very simple geometric forms, was that a case of just reduction until...
I don't think I did more than one version of most of them. A couple of slightly more poetic, I guess. I think my favourite is the Reflections, which is just a circle with another circle in the idea of a puddle. Even in there, I talk about this way of working with very simple geometric shapes and how they can be lots of different things. So the circle appears in there almost every designer, but the context changes. Sometimes I think we live in a very literal world and people see circles and it's whatever they think it is, whereas it can be so many different things. That idea of such an ordinary thing as a circle could be a moon, it could be a ball, it could be a tiny little atom. That's kind of where it all stemmed from.
That was Rob Lowe, also known as Supermundane, and Lost Ordinary Magic is published by Little Brown and available at all good bookstores now. And that's all for today's show. Today's episode was co-hosted by Grace Charlton and was produced and edited by Maylee Evans with assistance from Hunter Wang. I'm Nick Manise. Thanks for listening.